Welcome back, learners. Now, in this session, we would be discussing legal procedures 2. This is the second part of Unit 1 of VMS 002 Management Functions, Block 1. Now, in this legal procedures, we would be discussing basically the taxation aspects. I won't be discussing much of how to calculate the taxes, but I'll show you a screen recording of the income tax rules where directly you can go and see how it works, because everything has become now electronic in nature, and even the filing of income tax returns is through the digital mode. So it is very easy to calculate the taxes in that manner. So from that you can just see how it works in that case. Let us now see the registration process of the trust, the society and the company. We'll see the income tax rules which are applicable to these NGOs and what kind of forms are to be used for filing the returns of the taxes, and then what is the procedure of the registration and why the registration is important. Can the registration process can the application filed for registration be rejected or it is approved by default? All these things we would be seeing in this session. When we talk about the registration, usually the trust, society and Section 8 company, I'm specifically mentioned Section 8 company. It's a not-for-profit company. They can register under Section 12A to claim the exemption under provisions of Income Tax Act 1961. And these are subject to the required compliances of the trust, the society and the Section 8 company. As per the rules of the government. Now, one note I would like to tell all my learners here is that the tax rules keep on changing. So whatever has been mentioned in the study material, the facts remain the same, but the income provisions, the amount, the minimum amount, etc. changes. So when we talk about the tax rules, you need to update yourself with the income tax site of Government of India. That screenshot I would be giving you, the screen reader I would be giving you. So that is the updated version where you can always go if you want to refer to the latest tax rules. When we talk about the Section 12A, it deals with the registration of the trust, and Section 12AA deals with the procedure for registration of a trust. So registration under Section 12A is mandatory to claim the exemption under Income Tax Act, whichever form the NGO is in. Now this is one thing is very important, because in earlier sessions we had discussed that the NGOs can be registered or NGOs cannot be registered. But if you want someone to have the exemption of the Income Tax Act, it is mandatory for that organization to be registered under Section 12A. The application for the registration is to be done under Section 12A and is made in the form which is under Section 10A, which is prescribed in the Rule 17A of the Income Tax Rules 1962. So all the rules of 1962 of Income Tax Act are being followed for the registration process and the exemption process. The procedure of application considers to whom it should be applied. This is very important to understand, to whom one should apply. Now it is the principal commissioner or the commissioner of the income tax exemption, specifically exemption. So these are the two authorities to which while registering or while applying for the registration of the NGO, this particular authority is the concerned authority where the application has to be made. These are certain documents which are required during the registration process under Section 12A. The first one is the self-certified copy of the trust deed or the instrument. Then there is a self-certified copy of the document with evidence that the trust exists. Self-certified copy of the registration with the registrar of the companies or the registrar of firms and societies or registrar of public trusts. It can be in any form. Self-certified copy of the documents with evidence for adoption or modification of the objects, if any, has to be attached with while applying. There are self-certified copies of the annual accounts of the trust. It should be for the past 3 years, not more than that. And the notes on the activities of the trust or the institution is to be given. The activities means like what kind of activity the trust or the institution is involved in, because it has to be very clear. There are many fraud cases coming where they have the registered name as the trust, but at the back end the institution is working for the non-legal causes. So that is very, very important that the proof or the evidence of the activities of the trust has to be supplied with the application form. The self-certified copies of the existing stating registration order under section 12A or section 12AA, if any, has to be supplied or furnished. Self-certified copy of the rejection order of an application for grant of registration under section 12A or section 12AA, if any. Now in this case, it is important to note that there may be cases where the rejection happened earlier. So one has to inform that once or twice, whatever the amount it is, the rejection happened and why it happened. So that particular part has to be covered. Now if it is a fresh application without any rejection, so there is no problem in it. So that is why if any word is being used. Now coming to the incometaxindia.gov.in site, and you will find all the details related to the income tax rules related to the trust. Now let us see what are the certain provisions given in the site of incometaxindia.gov.in, and this is a screen recording directly from their site where you could find different details regarding to the trust and the tax rules. Now if you see the income tax department's site, you would find some 6 icons. The first one is the introduction, the second one is the PAN, and the introduction gives the brief introduction about the trust. Then the second part gives how to apply, what are the documents and information which need to be submitted with the PAN application, and there are many more details related to the PAN card. Now PAN card here is, as I told earlier also, that the PAN card here is related to the trust. Then there are certain incomes, heads of the incomes, and this is for individuals also, if the trust is for the individual, and these heads are like house, property, capital gains, business, profession, other sources. But in this case we are taking only trust. Now the tax payments in this case is like what are the tax rates, how to pay the tax, what is the TDS, how to file the return, what is it mandatory to file the return, etc. Then there is a refund status also, like the exemptions which we were talking about. Now when we start with the site, you will find that there are certain, when we just click to the brief introduction part, you will find there are certain parts related to the trust. So if you see the site and if you click on brief introduction, you would find that the trust is formed for the charitable or the religious purpose. Under section 11, the term religious purpose is not referred. We'll just see what is section 11. Now if you see the section 11 of the Income Tax Act 1961, and which has been modified in 2020. I was telling you that the rules have been modified. You will find all the details related to section 11 in this case. What are the provisions of section 60 to 63? These are from income from property for the charitable or the religious purposes. You will find all kinds of information related to income derived from the house property, income derived from the capital gains, and all the explanations for different clauses in computing the income for the trust are given clearly. So I won't be going much into the details related to this, but if you just go through this site and read all the information available, that is the actual income information which is available, and it is being amended every now and then. As I said, it is the act is of 1961, but amendment happened in 2020 also. So the explanations of section 12AA, section 12AB, or the case may be, has also been given in this case. So when we talk about different sections under section 11, you will find that there are certain exemptions which are also provided. So if you go through this site, you will find all the details related to section 11. Now coming to another aspect which is related to the certain accounts or certain investments made by the trust or by the charitable societies. Now there are Government Savings Certificates Act also, 1959 Act also, through which one has to invest in different bonds, mutual funds, whatever it is, and whatever the income generated from them, whether that is taxable or not taxable. There is a long-term finance, there is a public company, there is a urban infrastructure explanation. Everything is given under section 11 of the Income Tax Act, and these has been explained quite explicitly in this site. That is why I categorically covered this particular part. Now, what are the tax rates, how to pay the taxes, all these are given under tax payments part. Now, if you see what is the tax rate, a trust is chargeable to tax as per the slab rates which are applicable to an individual, not being a senior citizen or super senior citizen. The surcharge is as applicable to an individual, including the education cess. How to pay the tax? It can be through physical mode, but e-payment mode is more popular, and at these specific times e-payment of direct taxes has to be done through the digital mode. Now these are the directives or the guidelines for e-payments of direct taxes, so one can always go there and see how the tax has to be paid. Now coming to the part of return filing, and then what are the exemptions allowed to a trust. So when we talk about the exemptions to a trust, income of charitable and religious trust is exempt from tax subject to certain conditions. The exemptions are provided to the trust under various provisions inter alia, like section 10, section 11 we have already seen, and some of the exemption allowed to a trust are as under, like section 11 provides exemption of income derived from property, etc. Now this is the detailed version given in the site, and you can just scroll through or you can scan through the whole site in different versions, because you just click on them and you'll get all the information available. Let us now see some other information which needs to be furnished by the trust, the society, the company, whatever is applicable to the NGO. There is a form number 10A which I was discussing while going through the Income Tax India site, and form 10A has to be furnished electronically. Now there are two clauses. The clause 1 says that there should be a digital signature, and clause 2 says there should be an electronic verification code. Now these two clauses are applicable as per the conditions of the trust. Digital signature is used if the return of income is required to be furnished under digital signature. Usually it is done if the returns are filed and it is mandatory to have the digital signature. But if it is not applicable to the trust, then the returns have to be filed through electronic verification code, and there the digital signature is not required. Form number 10A is usually verified by the person who is authorized to verify the returns of the income under section 140, which is applicable to the assessee who is applying for the returns or who is filing the returns. There is some more other information which is required while filing the returns, that there is no provision for renewal of registration. What happens is, if the application is rejected, then that means it is not approved. But once it is approved, there is no provision of the renewal unless the registration of that particular trust is not valid under certain activities which do not come under the purview of the NGOs. If there are some illegal activities or activities which are profitable in nature, which are not related to NGOs, then in that case the registration may be cancelled, but there is no provision of the renewal of registration. Now, audit is also prerequisite for claiming exemption under section 11 and section 12. Now, if the total income of the trust which is to be computed without giving the effect to the provisions of section 11 and 12, it exceeds INR or rupees 2,50,000, then it has to be audited by the chartered accountant. Then only you can file the returns. Now, the returns have to be filed on the total income before exemption under section 11 and 12, and if it exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to the income tax. So these are some of the information which need to be kept in mind while filing the returns. Now let us see one more important thing. When we are filing income tax return as an individual or as a trust or as a society or as a company, now in this case usually ITR 7 is used. Now this is the latest form. I'll give you a preview of this form, which is also applicable on the website of the Income Tax India. And if you see the preview of this form, you will find that this is the form, income tax returns form for 2020-21. This is for the last assessment year, financial year, and you'll just see it has all the details regarding the individuals, and here the individual is the trust or the society or the company, and all the information related to the incomes has been given in this form. We have just seen ITR 7. Now if you go to the Income Tax India site, you will find that ITR 7 is filed when persons including companies, they fall under section 139(4)A, section 139(4)B, section 139(4)C or section 139(4)D. The details about these sections is also given on that site, where you can see what does it account for. Now this is mandatory for a trust to file return of income electronically nowadays, with or without digital signature, because the incomes, the funds are coming, income is generated, though it is being used for the welfare purposes, but it has to be filed. The returns have to be filed. They can also file the returns of the income under electronic verification code, as I gave you the example that whatever is applicable, wherever it is required, that particular mode can be used. Now, if the accounts of the trusts are audited under section 44AB, then it should furnish the returns electronically using the digital signature. If they are not audited, then the digital signatures are not required. Now, when we talk about the dates for filing of returns, the dates have been changed due to COVID-19 pandemic, and usually The dates for the trust who is required to furnish a report in form number 3CEB under section 92E, it is November 30th of the assessment year, and in any other case it is July 31 of the assessment year. Due to pandemic, these dates for the assessment year has been extended, and for the individuals it has increased further more, but for the other parts the October 30th date has been covered, and it has the July 31st date is now December 31st. When we talk about the tax rates, as applicable to individuals not being a senior citizen or super senior citizen, as we have seen earlier also, these are the tax rates applicable as per the slabs given by the Income Tax Act or income tax given in the income tax rules, and they keep on changing. They change every year, usually every year, but one has to update oneself that what is the slab for the tax rates. There is a penalty also if you don't file a return within a stipulated time period. A penalty of sum of ₹100 for every day till the returns are filed is recorded. Now usually it is 1%, but for a month, and it accounts for ₹100 on an average. Now suppose the last date for filing the income tax returns is December 31st, and the income tax returns have not been filed, and the income tax return is filed say on January 4th, then a penalty of ₹400 has to be added with the filing of the returns. The entities registered under section 12AA are required to file the return of income within the time allotted under section 139 of the Act. Now we come to the most important part, which people are quite interested while giving donations to the NGOs or the charitable organization or the religious trust. Now this is very interesting to note here is that section 80G accounts for donations. Now it is under Income Tax Act 1961, and it provides deduction while computing the total income in the hands of a donor. So the donor gets the exemption under section 80G. So as I showed you an example of a society where they have registered under section 80G, that means if you donate to that organization, your income would be exempted as per the rules applicable. If it is more than a certain amount, then it won't be exempted. So if registration under 12AA does not provide automatic approval under section 80G, that is why if you see in that particular example, it is written registration under section 80G. Even if the trust or the society or the company is registered, usually the trust is registered under section 12AA, it does not give a blanket approval that it is registered under section 80G, because the trust has to register separately for section 80G, and usually it applies only to charitable trusts or institutions, and it does not apply to the religious trusts or institutions. So when you're donating to the religious trust, it is not exempted under section 80G because they are not applicable for registering under section 80G. So the institutions or the funds should be established for charitable purposes in India if they have to register under section 80G for the exemption of the donations. What is registration under section 80G? I know it's quite monotonous, but it is very important, and one should have the awareness of section 80G while filing the returns. There is a rule 11AA of the Income Tax Rules 1962, which I was discussing while showing you the screen recording of the Income Tax India site. And it provides a procedure for seeking the approval under section 80G. One has again to furnish the application with specific documents for approval to be made in the form number 10G, which usually is verified by the concerned person who is authorized to verify the returns of the income under section 140. Form number 10G has to be furnished electronically as of now, has to have digital signatures as of now, and it can be done through electronic verification code if the digital signature is not applicable. For the small trusts, electronic verification code can be used. Now let us see the approval and rejection of the application. This is quite interesting to note that the application could be rejected also on certain grounds for section 80G. So that means all the trusts are not exempted under section 80G for the income tax purposes. If the principal commissioner or the commissioner of income tax exemptions is satisfied that one or more conditions which have been laid down in section 80G5 are not fulfilled, then they may record the reasons in writing and reject the application. And the commissioner may ask for additional documents to satisfy themselves. And if the commissioner is satisfied that all the conditions are fulfilled, they may grant the approval to the entity. If they are not satisfied, then the application may be rejected. Usually this process takes place from the date of application to the approval or the rejection of application for within 6 months of the application. Renewal of 80G registration. Now in this case, there are certain amendments which have been made, and the renewal is only required for those whose expiry is due before October 1st, 2009. After 2009, certain amendments have been made and now the renewal is not required. For others, the perpetuity of approval has been provided until the commissioner withdraws the exemption based on certain activities which are not conforming to the rules and regulations of the government. So there is no deduction under section 80G allowed above 2,000 rupees unless until that amount is paid in any of the modes, through digital mode, any of the digital modes other than the cash. Now if any amount is paid in cash above 2,000 rupees, suppose you pay 2001 or suppose you pay 2010 or you pay 3,000, 4,000 in cash, then that particular only 2,000 is considered for exemption. The other rest of the amount is not considered for exemption. But if it is paid in a digital mode or any other mode, maybe in form of checks or maybe in form of certain transfers, then that can be considered for exemption under section 80G. Now these steps has been particularly taken by the government to provide cashless economy and the transparency to the organization, to the individuals who are donating, so that a particular system exists where the fair means are recorded and there is no misappropriation and there is no fraud. So this is all about the renewal of 80G registration. These are some of the references which you can go through and of course the SLM is also there, and these are some of the websites given where you can go through and you see what are the certain legal procedures for both the sessions, and these legal procedures, how they you can say analyze the legal procedures. And if you go through these sites, you will find that they are updated in itself. If whatever you see today may not be applicable tomorrow related to income tax. Thank you so much for patient watching. Hope you enjoyed the session, and if you have any feedback, you can always write to us through the mail. Thank you so much.